Hello everybody, welcome back to the Stacey West preview show. My name is Jake Tonge. We've got another game tomorrow night now as we record against Gillingham. Very fortunate to be joined by Matt, the Gills in the Blood podcast host. How you doing, mate? All right?
I'm good, mate. Yourself? Thanks for having me on.
No worries, mate. Obviously, we spoke to you last year, but since the world of COVID has sort of kicked in, we're doing this over Zoom now, which appears to be the normal way. But we'll just talk a little bit about Gillingham then. Obviously, middle of the pack right now, played 22, won 9, drew 2, lost 11. Can you just sort of tell us a little bit about the Gills season so far?
Middle of the pack, like you said, I think. I mean, it's been weird. It's been up until like the last couple of weeks, we was playing in batches of 5. I think the first 5 games of the season in the league, we won 3. We was 4th after the first 5. Then we went 5 games without even scoring a goal, let alone winning a football match. And then I think the 5 after that, we picked up 13 points from 15 available. Then we lost 5 out of 6 until Saturday when we pitched up at Akinde. Anyone who watches my channel knows I'm generally optimistic. Even I was struggling to predict a win. And bugger me, we turn up and turn into AC Milan in the 80s defensively. That's a bit strong in fairness. But you know what I mean? We were good going forward and we pitched a really good 1-0 win and we deserved it. And yeah, it sets us up nicely. I'm looking forward to the game a little bit more now tomorrow night than I was before Saturday. Certainly after the back of last Saturday's 1-0 defeat at home to Burton, who hadn't kept a clean sheet for about 356 million years, I think it was, and hadn't won on the road all season. And it was back to the bad old days of generous Gills, as we like to call them on the channel, and gifting teams points when they're struggling. But I think we were back at it. And I said there was one thing that I sort of levelled against us in the last 3 games that we'd lost, because we'd lost to Northampton, Plymouth and Burton, and they'd been in no form at all, and then they all beat us. And I just said that it didn't look like a Steve Evans side. It was very disjointed and we were too easy to play against, and that was something that we'd not seen since Steve Evans had come in May 2019, and we were really good last season in that sense, and we kept lots of clean sheets. But I think Saturday was probably back to where we need to be and where we want to be. And a couple of the new lads, we'll get on to them in a little while, Ollie Lee and Callum Slattery came in, made a huge difference in terms of know-how and experience and just allowing us to control the game from the middle of the park. But like I say, it was a much more Steve Evans team type performance, and we hadn't seen enough of that in recent weeks.
Yeah, I think that win over Accrington sort of helped us out a little bit as well, because Accrington could go above us in the league table, but obviously
they got ridiculous games in hand, didn't they? Because of all this COVID stuff. I think they'd only played 17 before Saturday, which is mental. They're going to end up playing 3 a week at this rate.
Yeah. Which obviously the idea to extend the season is probably a whole other debate entirely. But you touched there about the signings that you've made. Obviously, Ollie Lee's come back. He was up at Hearts, but he was on loan. Was he with you last season as well?
This is actually his 3rd spell on loan. We had him when he was really young in about 2012. I think he came on loan from West Ham at the time because he was there as a kid. And he didn't pull up any trees then. But he was really good last season. I try to keep track of goals and assists for the channel and stuff like that. And I think by my calculations last season, he was directly involved in 16 goals in about 35 games, which was 6 goals himself and 10 assists. But like I say, the main thing Saturday was he just allowed us to keep the ball a bit more, took a little bit of pressure off the likes of Carl Dempsey and Jordan Graham, who we invariably go to for creativity and trying to make things happen. But Ollie Lee, like I say, he's experienced now. He's 29 now, I think it is. He's been around the block, like you say. He's been at Hearts and done all right. He was in a very good Luton side with his brother that got promoted out of League 2 and then went all the way through from League 1 to the Championship. I know he'd left at the time, but he's a very good EFL player, and he brings quality as well as that experience and that know-how. And I think we'd lost a lot of that this season after Stuart O'Keefe broke his leg early doors against Coventry in the EFL Cup. And him coming back was a massive bonus. He's 2 months ahead of schedule. He actually got on the pitch Saturday for 30 seconds. So that's probably like a new signing for us as well. And it's another one who would provide leadership. And Callum Slattery, I thought, was really good for someone making his debut. I mean, I didn't know a lot about him. But just comparing him to the two lads that we did have in there that got recalled by Celtic and Coventry last week, that was Josh Eccles and Scott Robertson. He just looks a little bit further along in his education. There's a little bit more know-how in terms, like a couple of times Accrington were trying to take quick free kicks and he just go and stand in front of the ball or just kick it away without the referee seeing, so we could get back in and set up. Whereas I think previous weeks where, and it's no disrespect to Robertson and Eccles, I think they'll be good players, but I just think where Slattery's a little bit further along, he's got a little bit more up top and realises the dirtier side of the game and the uglier side of the game that you don't always see. And I thought he was very good at the weekend and was certainly in contention to be our man in a match.
Because Slattery, it sort of struck out to me because he's played in the Premier League for Southampton quite a few times.
Yeah, I think he has got games. He's definitely got minutes. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a great deal, but yeah, I mean, so he's obviously highly thought of, and we seem to have a good relationship with Southampton. We had Alfie Jones and Tommy O'Connor last season. We've got Tommy back this year, and we've also got Tyreek Johnson and now Callum as well. So there seems to be a decent link, which is great. If you can get good young Premier League players in, it obviously helps your cause. You know, you have to bear with them in the sense that they're still learning the game. I mean, you've probably had that. Who was the lad you had from Arsenal? Was it John Jules?
John Jules, who's gone to Doncaster.
Yeah, you have to bear with them. They're going to chuck in 5 out of 10 some weeks, but then other weeks they might chuck in a 10 out of 10 and win you a football match. So it's the risk you take when you bring these kids in on loan. They're learning the game for a reason. So
I think we've got the same as well in Morgan Rogers, obviously from Manchester City, a similar sort of player, I guess. But I seem to remember that as well. You had 2 players recalled by Arsenal before just at the start of the window. Medley.
Oh yeah, they've both gone back. There was nothing official confirmed, but Ollie Lee was wearing Trey Coyle's number, and we've not seen Zach Medley for a few weeks. But it seems to have been now that they have gone back to Arsenal, and we wish them well. I thought they were both decent enough. I think Medley had played in Europa League a couple of seasons back, but you know, you don't take too much notice of the Europa League, especially the group stage. You end up playing sort of every man and his dog from here to the other side of Russia, don't you? They're not the greatest games, but they're both highly thought of, and I'm sure they'll have decent careers. I thought Trey Coyle was probably slightly unfortunate with us. He played a lot in that first 5 games of the season, and I think he scored 4 goals for us. And I think Steve Evans said only a few weeks ago after the Swindon game, which was the start of December, that he was the most natural finisher available at the club. And then for one reason or another, he's not been seen and he's decided to go back, or Arsenal have asked him to go back. Maybe he'll go somewhere else and play every week, and hope he does really well, because they've clearly got ability, the pair of them.
Are you expecting them to be a bit busier in the window? Obviously, we know Steve Evans from his time at Peterborough, Rotherham, Leeds, Mansfield, Boston. He tends to be quite busy in windows, bringing quite a host of players. Are you expecting him to bring in quite a few more?
I imagine we probably need a couple more. I know he's pretty hopeful that there's a deal in place for a Championship centre-half to come in on loan. I think they're just waiting on I think it's either a couple of injuries or a couple of COVID-related issues to be cleared up at that club, and then hopefully that's done. So whether it's done in time for tomorrow night, I'm not sure now. We're running out of time, but hopefully it'll be available for the weekend. I'm not sure who it is. There's been a couple of names mentioned, but again, it's a Championship player. It's, you know, we'll announce it that we've beaten off other clubs like every football club announces. Yeah. I don't get this. People laugh at Steve Evans when he says, "Oh, he's beaten off competition from other clubs," but I'm not sure how he's meant to announce it. If he comes out on Twitter and goes, "Oh, the kid's a load of rubbish, we've just taken a chance because there was nothing else available," he gets slated as well. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I'm not sure who it is, but we'll see hopefully in the next sort of 48, 72 hours, we'll get one in. And I think we need another striker, because Dominic Samuel looks like he's out for the rest of the season. Unfortunately, he was sort of our marquee signing along with Dempsey and Graham start of the season, but he's torn a hamstring and then got COVID, which meant it delayed the surgery, and now it looks like he could be done for the whole campaign, unfortunately. And he was just starting to sort of settle back in, because we had him on loan a few years ago as well. And the 2 strikers we've got in, John Akinde and Vidane Oliver, they offer similar qualities. They're almost a clone of each other. They're big target men types. They're not out and out quick, but if you play it into their feet and their chest, they'll hold it up and you can get runners off them. But you always want a different type of front man, someone that, you know, running behind and stretch defences. So I've got no names on that or any idea of who it is, but fingers crossed. I know we've meant to have spoken to a lad who's played a few games in the Championship, but I don't know whether it's a loan or a permanent, someone at the end of their career or whatever. So it's just another one we'll just have to wait for. But yeah, I think we need a couple more in just to give us ourselves that little bit of leeway, because I think we've only got about 19 players at the moment, and that's basically a starting 11 and a bench and nothing else.
Yeah, you spoke there about John and Vidane Oliver. Obviously, they've both had spells with Lincoln. Obviously, John was successful in the fact that he won the League Two title. Obviously, controversially, he was a bit of a controversial figure at Lincoln, but obviously he seems to be doing all right at Gills. And then for Dane Oliver, we had a couple of years ago when we were in the conference, and he was just seeing streets above everybody else. And it's just good to see them sort of players, finding their way into League One with Gillingham.
Yeah, John's been frustrating. I was very excited when we signed him. I thought he was the type of centre forward we needed, and I backed him at the start of the season in my season preview video to be our top scorer, because I know he takes penalties as well, and I think he has scored a penalty, 1 or 2 this season. But he's flattered to deceive a lot of the times, particularly at the beginning of the season. I thought he had opportunities in games. He was starting the EFL Trophy matches and League Cup games, and you're thinking, go on, just go and bully centre halves. And he'd do it for a little while, and then he'd sort of ease off and back off and allow the centre half to play. And you just think, similarly to what we've been like, I suppose, he's been a bit inconsistent. But Rochdale, just before Christmas, he was unplayable. I mean, if you can get him doing that every week, then you've got one hell of a player. And he scored twice, could have had hat-trick. But then he's missed chances in other games where you'd expect him to score. He missed a couple of good chances last week at home to Burton. The second one, I think the keeper makes a good save, but anywhere else in the goal, it goes in. He's 7 yards out. I think he hit the post against Fleetwood a month or so ago. If that goes in, it's a different game at 0-0. But he's not scored enough goals, unfortunately. That's strikers, that's what they're there to do. And I think he's only got 4 or 5 in 35 games, which is 1 in 7. It's not ideal, but he's not started loads of games this season. But you touched on for Dane Oliver. Dane Oliver's been a breath of fresh air. He's been absolutely superb. He's our top scorer at the moment. I just think he's really, really good at what he does. I mean, you probably follow like the likes of D3, D4, and they're always putting up stats. And I think every League One tweet about aerial battles, I think for Dane Oliver's top. He's an absolute monster in the air. And like Saturday, for instance, he didn't score and he weren't directly involved in the goal, but he stretches defenders, he makes centre-halves work hard, and he's probably up against the biggest back line in the division. I think, is it Sykes they've got, who plays right wing-back? The bloke's about 11 foot tall. I've never seen a wing-back like it. And for Dane he goes up against him on his own, because we play him as a lone striker at the moment, and he does a great job. And with a bit of luck, he could have probably had another 2 or 3 goals this season, but he's got 7 and we're just below halfway. So if he goes at the same rate, he gets 14, 15, 16 for the season in all competitions. For a free transfer who's coming up from League Two, I don't think that's a bad return at all.
And Steve Evans, and obviously we weren't not going to bring him up. There seemed to be quite a bit of hoo-ha at the game last season at Sincil Bank with Michael Appleton putting Steve Evans back in his box, especially from a Lincoln point of view after the full-time whistle. But Steve Evans, obviously a respected manager at the EFL. How's he got on at Gills so far? Obviously, they've not managed to get out.
Everyone asked me this question about Steve Evans, and they say, what did you think when he was announced? And I'd be happy, I'll say I didn't want him. I thought there was, at the time, I thought there were younger managers with better pedigree that were out there, and, that were up and coming in the likes of Paul Hurst at the time was available. I know he'd been burned at Ipswich, but I thought, he'd done a great job at Shrewsbury a couple of seasons ago, Grimsby previously to that, and he's gone back there now. I thought Darryl Clark done a great job at Bristol Rovers, getting them up from the National League into League One. I know it didn't end great, but he was available, but then they went into League Two and they didn't really pull up any trees in their first seasons there, and Hurst ended up getting sacked by Scunthorpe, and he's rebuilding at Grimsby, like I say now. He's gone back there where he started, so I hope they both do really well. But Steve Evans has won me round, and I'm happy enough to admit that. And I know there's all the extracurricular stuff we're called he did earlier in his career, but nobody's perfect, and everyone makes errors. And if people sit here and say that they are perfect and they don't do anything wrong, I think they're lying. So I'm always willing to give someone a second chance. And like I've said a million times, it probably feels like all we wanted as Gills fans, after having to watch Adrian Pennant try and run our football team for a season and a half, and going to Northampton on the last day of the season 3 or 4 years ago, relying on Port Vale not scoring a goal just to stay in League One.
Yeah,
it's been much, much better. And it's nice just to think, right, we're comfortably in the middle of the table. We're looking up rather than down. I know we've just had a rough trot the last 6 before Saturday, but he's made us harder to play against. He's got better players in. He's attracted better players. He's got us playing better football. He's making us harder to beat, and he's making us win more football matches. So any football fan wants their team to win football matches, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And you spoke a bit earlier about other danger men that Gills may have. Jordan Graham is one that I've noticed whilst he's been, obviously he was at Wolves, quite a good player for Wolves as well. He seems to have hit the ground running for Gills this year as well, doesn't he?
He's been class this season. Yeah, we missed him for that. So, for about a month, 5 weeks, I think it was. He pulled hamstring in the cup, and then we missed him for a few weeks. And we actually done all right while he was out. I think we won the 2 straight after. I think we beat Bristol Rovers and Wimbledon without him, but then we started to struggle, and then he came back in a couple of weeks back, and we still lost. But if you're getting one-on-one with a fullback in this division, I don't think there's any fullbacks that will stop him properly. The amount of times he gets to the byline and gets dangerous balls into dangerous areas is absolutely ridiculous for this level. I know a load of our fans chat a lot, and I tweeted this week and said, there was one pirouette he did just inside the Accrington half at the week, and 2 of them ended up basically on the front row of the stand. It was hilarious to watch. And we've had jokes about him being a cheat code, and I hear people talking about this midfielder and that midfielder's best in the division. I think we've got 2 invariably of the best if they're on their game, and that's Carl Dempsey and Jordan Graham. Like you said, Jordan Graham comes from Wolves. He was meant to go and play there in the Premier League until he had a cruciate ligament injury a few years ago, and he's had to rebuild. But the kid's only 25 still, and he's got so much natural ability, and he wants to work hard and he wants to play. And Carl Dempsey's still only 24. I think people forget that he went to the Championship early with Huddersfield. He captained Carlisle as a teenager. For the life of me, I can't work out why Joe Barton decided they wanted to release him on a free transfer, but I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, obviously then we're on a Lincoln City podcast, so we'd have to talk about Lincoln. Obviously,
of course, yeah, definitely.
Top of the league. Not that we like to mention it or anything.
Enjoy it. 100% enjoy it. I'll be talking about it all the time.
We seem to be doing all right at the minute. Obviously, have you seen much of Lincoln or heard of much of what Appleton's getting doing this year?
Not more in terms of any whole games. Obviously, up to date with Sky Sports apps and things like that, and obviously listening to you guys on Twitter and watching Quest, the football highlights. And I've done our match preview today earlier on and published that, and I said it was always going to be a hard act to follow, obviously following the Cowleys, who were absolutely brilliant for you lot up there, and that cup run as well as the promotions from the National League and then into League One, it must have been incredible. I always, when people ask me about what's the best time as a Gills fan, it was mid-90s going through to sort of the early 2000s when we went up from what's now League Two, and then we went to Wembley twice, and then we punched above our weight in the Championship for 5 years. And I can imagine that the Lincoln fans were living a similar dream like that when you was going to Burnley and beating them and taking on Arsenal, I think it was, in the cup and competing. And Michael Appleton had to come in and he's changed the whole philosophy. I think, would that be fair to say? You don't play the same way as the Cowleys play. I think the Cowleys were a lot more direct. Michael Appleton likes his teams to be more technical, to get it down and pass through the phases of the pitch, and it was never going to be instant. And I think the Lincoln team that we'll see this season is different to the Lincoln team that we played last season. You've already alluded to it. We beat you 1-0 at the Priestfield, and it was, I think it was an early goal from Mika Mandron, and then it was a pretty crap 0-0, to be fair, at Sincil Bank, wasn't it? But you'll be a different animal now. Like I say, he's got his own players in, he's got his own system and own ideas and his own ethos, and you're top of the league for a reason, and you're winning football matches for a reason. It's because Michael Appleton's a really good manager at this level, and I know James on D3, D4 loves him from his time at Oxford, and I think you're getting exactly the same sort of Michael Appleton that they had there a few years ago, and it'll be a really tough game tomorrow. And you've got some really good players. George Grant, I think, is an unbelievably good player at this level. I've noticed this was in double figures already for the season from midfield, so in all competitions. So that's going to be one. I think Tom Hopper was a great buy. Picked him up for not too much coming out of Southend. He was a decent player as a kid at Southend, I think, but he was another one that had injury problems, but you keep him fit. I wrote a few down as well. I'm just looking here. But yeah, you've got good players. The lad from West Ham who's on loan, is it Anthony Scully as well? Looks a good player.
Yes, Scully.
Look, like you say, they're Michael Appleton players. They're not the sort of players that you think Danny Cowley would have brought in.
No.
He played the John Akindes, didn't he? Played a certain way. I think that's why the likes of Jack Payne maybe didn't work out at Lincoln, but Michael's moved all them on, and you're playing a great brand of football, and you're getting results with it, which is always an added bonus, isn't it?
Yeah, so fingers crossed we can find a way into the Championship. Obviously, there's quite a lot of ex-Premier League clubs in the division this year, so it's going to be rather difficult, but we seem to be doing all right so far. Obviously, tomorrow night, now as we speak, how are you feeling going into the game?
Like I say, if you'd probably asked me last Friday, I wouldn't have been confident at all. But after seeing us on Saturday with a new signings, a little bit more confident. I was looking at previous results, but it's weird, isn't it? Because we've not played each other a lot over the last 10 years, because obviously you guys dropped out of the Football League. And I think after last season, you have to go all the way back to about 2010-11.
Yeah, that's when we were last in League
Two.
2.
League meetings.
Yeah.
And I think you beat us, and then we battered you at Sincil Bank 4-0. But I mean, you take that out, the other three have been really low scoring and really close games, haven't they? So I think it'll be another battle like that. If we're at it like we were on Saturday, I fancy us to get something. If we play like we did against Burton and Plymouth and Northampton, you roll us over comfortably. That's the way football works. You have to turn up in the same way that your favourites, you know that you can't just turn up and you just get 3 points. And earn the right to play football. And like you've said, you know how Steve Evans' teams play. And if we're at it, it would be nasty to play against and it'll be hard work. But we'll see how it goes. It'll be 2 contrasting styles. I think we have the ability to go long with the Dane Oliver playing, but fingers crossed if the likes of Ollie Lee and Carl Dempsey and Jordan Graham are on it, then we can get it down and we can try and play a bit as well, which is what we did at the weekend, and we mixed it up really well. But it'll be tough. Lincoln are flying.
Yeah. How are you expecting Gills to line up?
Well, I had a look today because obviously there's not been any real press conference, but Steve Evans, I think, has mentioned in a local newspaper interview that there's 1 or 2 that started at the weekend that might be carrying knocks. But for me, if they're available, we don't change it. Yeah. That was as good a performance as we've put in at the weekend, considering, like you say, where Accrington are and the amount of games in hand they've got. Like you say, they go top if they'd beaten us with all their games in hand. So in terms of a 90 minutes to be put together, that was probably our best performance, along with Rochdale and maybe Bristol Rovers. We've done it in patches a lot this season where we've been good for 20 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour, but then it's the other period in the game where we've switched off and it's ultimately cost us points. But we'll have to be at it from minute 1 till the final whistle, and if we're not, we could be in for a long night. But if we can, I was going to say quiet on the crowd, but such is life, that don't matter at the moment, does it? But if we can keep it quiet, you know what I mean, and we can get to half time at 0-0 and give ourselves a platform, then it'd be an interesting second half. But if you had to ask me for a score prediction, I think I did 1-1 on mine.
1-1.
Yeah. You're probably going to say Lincoln win. It's fine. We're all slightly biased, aren't we, towards our own team. But if you'd asked me before Accrington, I'd have probably said about 8-0 to you. So.
Anyway, Matt, thank you very much for coming on. No
worries.
How can Lincoln fans get your views and opinions? How can they find you?
We're on YouTube at Gills in the Blood TV, which you very kindly shouted out right at the beginning. I'm on Facebook as well. You have to ask to join that one, though. But in terms of open social medias, there's an Instagram page, and obviously we're on Twitter. We've also got Stocky and Boz, who join me in the ground when we're allowed to go to football matches when there's not a worldwide pandemic. They run a podcast as well, which is called Gills in the Blood Injury Time. That's just basically us three taking the piss out of each other. So that's always a bit of a laugh. But unfortunately, we can't do that at the moment either because we can't go around each other's houses. But yeah, so basically Twitter, Instagram and YouTube are the easiest ones to find us on. If you can go and subscribe, it'd be great. And obviously keep following and keep subscribing the Stacey West blog because it's a really good Lincoln site and it's good knowledge. And I love listening and watching and reading fans that have good knowledge about their football clubs at this level. I don't do newspapers or too much about the Premier League anymore. I mean, I watch it if it's on because it's football, but much prefer the proper football down in the lower leagues. It's there's much more sense of connectivity with the club and stuff like that, and that's why we all do these type of things, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, thank you very much, Matt, for coming on. Thank you everybody else for watching, and we'll see you at some point next week for the Northampton preview. Thank you very much. See you later, guys.